There are Impressionist artists whose work is important, but not yet fully studied. The American Impressionist John Leslie Breck is one such artist. The first ever solo retrospective exhibition that the Mint has organized speaks to its stewardship of scholarship in expanding our understanding of the period and of the artist Breck, the native Bostonian who was inspired by Monet at Giverny.
This is the first retrospective of John Leslie Breck's work since his memorial exhibition in 1900. It was many years in the making, and it brings together more than 70 of Breck's finest paintings, some of which have not been seen by the public in more than a century. My own interest in Breck began when I encountered his elegant painting, Gray Day on the Charles, when I worked at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts in the late 1990s. And I was fascinated by it because I thought the painting was a great painting, and it was great for me to discover more about him then, the limited bit that was available, and so I've always just kept my eyes open for his work since then. Breck was one of the first American artists to visit Giverny. He became close to the Monet family, and he invited Breck to go painting with him, and the fact that he appears in some of Breck's paintings on the grounds of his garden even illustrates the closeness of their relationship. He not only was among that first group, but also really helped to establish it as an artist colony. By that point, the mid to late 1880s, Impressionism was pretty well established in France, but it wasn't until really the late 1880s that it really kind of started to catch hold with American artists because of artists like Breck, who not only went there and painted and spread the word, but then also came back to America. Yet despite all of this, Breck has remained relatively unknown since his early death in 1899, just shy of his 39th birthday. His mature career lasted little more than a decade, and many of his paintings have remained in private hands to this day. In fact, there are fewer than 10 American museums that own examples of his work. So when the Mint Museum Auxiliary, which is a longtime supporter of our American art collection, approached me about acquiring a classic example of American art for the Mint, I immediately thought of Breck. We ended up narrowing it down to his 1888 painting, Suzanne Hocheday's Sewing. We really loved that the subject of our painting, the focus on Monet's future stepdaughter, the fact that it was done during Breck's first year in Giverny. It really is a kind of a pivotal example of that link between American Impressionism and French Impressionism. It's great for a show like this to be able to not only bring together paintings to complement our own Breck, but also then to be able to do a catalog, to document all of that research and work, and then to share the show with other museums. To help with the complex process of organizing the project, which ultimately includes loans from more than 35 different sources, I reached out to Jeffrey Brown. He and his colleague, Royal Leith, had already begun work on a manuscript for a long overdue book on the artist. Using Jeffrey's extensive files, we began to track down as many of the artist's best paintings as we could find. Another person that I contacted was Boston art dealer Martha Richardson. Martha graciously connected us with some of the artist's relatives who had maintained their own collections of his work. So by the start of 2019, we developed a working checklist of paintings that we wanted to include in the show. And in early March of that year, literally the first week the country began to shut down due to the emergence of the COVID virus, we set out our loan request letters. Now, in most cases, with a little persistence, we were able to find and secure works we were after. Once the loan agreements had been signed, our registrar, Julia Kraft, worked with the owners and fine art shippers to carefully pack and crate each painting before they were brought to the museum. We have an art handling team that helps to physically uncrate the paintings, place them around the gallery, get all the measurements. Our graphic design team produces all the labels or orders the large-scale graphics. We met a lot. We talked about the period. We looked at the paintings in terms of inspiration for some of the colors of the walls, just to give a sense of the feeling of the time and the design of the show. We also worked with Tim Perotti, who's a local scenic designer, to create 4 subtle line drawings on the gallery walls that speak to some of the places in which Breck worked. A field in Giverny, or the street in the town, or the coast of Massachusetts, or a corner of Venice. Finally, we also incorporated enlargements of period photographs of Giverny into the installation. These were taken by a teenage daughter of Breck's colleague, Lila Cabot Perry, in the 1890s. We really wanted to emphasize Breck's deep love of the landscape as a common theme in his work. This is the theme we felt would really resonate with contemporary audiences, particularly as people turn to the outdoors for solace during the pandemic over the past year or so. To enhance this theme, we also partnered with the Charlotte Garden Club to create 8 audio tour stops where visitors can scan QR codes adjacent to certain paintings to learn more about their floral content. It really has been a pleasure to manage the many behind-the-scenes details that came together to make John Leslie Breck, American Impressionist, and its accompanying publication possible. They offer us a rare opportunity to see for the first time so many of Breck's groundbreaking paintings gathered in one place, to dive into the lush world of his landscapes, and to consider anew his rich legacy.